Good morning, diplomats. Today, the Jordanian government wants to address probably one of the most aggravating issues our country is facing, the Syrian refugee crisis. It is a big concern to our people, and we are sure it's also a big concern to the entire international community, based on the mutual security goals that we share in the MENA region. Since the signing of the peace treaty with Israel in 1994, Jordan has undoubtedly become the stronghold of stability in this region. We fought alongside to defeat extremism in the war on terror in 2014. We worked hand in hand to restore stability and security in Iraq after the fall of Saddam Hussein. But now it's our time to ask for your help. The spillover of the Syrian civil war is shaking our political, economic, and social stability, and the number of Syrian refugees account for more than 500,000 in Jordanian soil. This sudden and massive influx of Syrian refugees has put enormous pressure on our resources, budget, social cohesion. Hence, we address the international community here today to increase the financial support to ease current tension and long-term instability. The influx of Syrian refugees challenges our immediate national security. Throughout our history, we've welcomed Palestinian, Iraqi refugees, but those same Palestinian refugees wrote a black chapter in Jordanian history in 2017, when they collaborated with the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, to challenge the Jordanian government and Jordanian population in what was known as Black September. Don't get us wrong here, we show solidarity with the Syrian cause, but our history tells us to be cautious about the challenges that this massive entry of refugees pose. It also poses a threat to our legitimacy. As of today, Syrians represent 10% of our whole population, and the next generation, these individuals will seek for political demands, to engage politically in our system, and it might crystallize in confrontation with the Jordanian government and social upheaval, or they might select a Syrian prime minister, which adds further complexities to our already stable Jordanian political system. Therefore, we plead the international community to create a buffer zone in the Jordanian border with Syria to attend primary needs of a chunk of Syrian refugees, so a distribution of the number of Syrian refugees in Jordan. The Jordanian government is amenable even to hand over territories northwest of the city of Irbil over a 5-year period. And this buffer zone will, of course, enjoy international jurisdiction, international sovereignty, and it will give us, Jordan, the time and room we need to adequate resources to the necessities of a smaller part of the refugee population, and so we can alleviate the immediate economic pressure that we have over our resources. In terms of resources, the Jordanian government already launched this program called Jordan Response Plan in 2015 to try to mitigate the impact of Syrian refugees and sustain social economic stability. However, our government has been unable to cope with these unprecedented costs. A high demand for goods, increasing demand for public services, infrastructure, the economy just deteriorated, and the Jordanian resentment towards Syrians increased with that. Jordanians publicly blame Syrians for the increase in prices, the deterioration in the quality of public services. In Mafraq in the north, Jordanian protests just broke out in 2016 to express their discrepancies with refugees because of the competition over housing and job opportunities. It is because many Syrians work informally that our labor market has just saturated, and this is leading to social segregation and social conflict. Even on top of that, the likelihood of social conflict has also increased with their overstressing of water resources, which has been like an inherent problem in Jordanian politics from decades. For instance, water demand has increased like by 40%. And this decline in the Jordanian quality of life is escalating like tensions between Syrians and Jordans. And basically it sets up like the perfect scenario for future upheavals. 10 years ago, like the same kind of microeconomic problems related to unemployment and inflation led to the Arab Spring. And we all know the detrimental consequences that came along to Syria or Egypt. We rather don't become like any of these countries, but these socioeconomic problems associated with the increase in the number of refugees will eventually turn to break Jordan's internal stability if we don't act accordingly. And our plan to sustain stability passes through education. We identified education as our top priority. Looking at the demographics of Syrian refugees, it is estimated that half Syrian refugee population is under the age of 18. This makes education like vital to provide, to create the opportunities for development in the future for Jordan, but also like immediate opportunities to avoid like jihadist involvement. The reality is just that the refugee crisis has put like an excessive pressure on our public school system. We had even to implement like a two-shift system to allocate like 30,000 Syrian students. And however, many Syrian refugee children are not attending a school because of a lack of security, disruption of routine in their families, and most of all, like this vast unregulated economy that attracts some children to work instead of attending a school. With this situation in mind, we ask the international community to incentivize like children's attendance by offering compensations to Syrian refugee families so that children are not economically pushed to work. On average, Syrian children receive around $300 monthly. So these compensations should be like higher to increase the incentive to go to school. And if the child drops out, the compensation just stop flowing in. With this initiative, we just want to reduce the likelihood of being recruited by armed forces, because we have witnessed that poverty, unemployment, and no education like make refugees like perfect targets for radical and jihadist groups. When you grow without an education, it reduces the ability to form like civil trust, and that means that we're heading into a conflict. Therefore, the money that we invest today to revest social tension, national security, and long-term instability is the money that we will save in the future for our country. Thank you so much.